think heaven above for hotkeys.
No, I was gonna come up. You ruined my intro. Now that we've got an official setup, I was gonna try to pull some radio nonsense.
Oh.
Welcome! Hey, what's he say? It's the Deathly Pallor coming from 99.02 FM, The Stir. Coming up next, we got some hot new tracks. Some Who.
Don't ever do that again.
What is it, the Randy Felt face? The WMMR.
WMMR.
Call in with your nicknames, the WMMR.
WMM, yeah.
Mine Schmuck. Come on down. What's the comedy? Helium Comedy Club. Come on down to wherever it is.
I love how they just actually basically made him a host of the show that day.
Well, he did. They didn't exactly. He kind of just took over on.
Well, but I mean, anybody who can do that with enough charisma that people kind of go, okay.
Well, he's a comedian. That's his whole. He better
shtick.
have charisma. We're seeing behind the curtain today. We didn't get the game started before we did any of this.
Oh dear. Well,
so now everyone will know how dope my avatar looks. And
subsequently how
much of my bank account can be
mine are.
How much of my bank account can be hacked based off of this information? You never know. 4chan can do anything.
Well,
found Shia. Weren't they the ones who found Shia LaBeouf's live stream when he was literally live streaming Blue Sky?
I don't recall that.
It was some kind of story where basically before he got a head on his shoulders, he had some kind of live stream going that was like, it was some sort of communist like thing where he was having some kind of rally, and then a bunch of people found out where it was and started harassing it. So he moved it to literally be a shot of the flag. I don't know what flag it was, but it was literally just Blue Sky flag, and using the fact that occasionally planes would go across the sky, and like they used weather reports and flight data to figure out where it was and found the camera and deactivated it. And it's like, that's actually kind of scary that there's people with that much time and that little else to do.
That's exactly the point, though, is that time is the great equalizer when it comes to that, because if you got time, you could do anything.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, it wasn't that long. It was like within 12 hours.
Still.
So like, yeah, I could probably figure that out in several weeks if I had to research all of the things. But like the fact that people knew enough about it to do it on the fly.
I feel like if you had open access to, the secret sauce to me is similar to the whole concept of sharing data and that whole concept, because it's, if you have enough hands and knowledge in a pool of people doing something,
got enough hands in a pool,
then you're
it's
going
a good
to
horror setup.
Then you're going to have an ability to, what is it, the whole axiom, many hands make light work. It's like,
yeah, but I prefer my uncle's version of that, which is many hands make a big mess.
Which is sometimes true as well.
Because why do we have, I mean, I suppose the difference is, because we also have the phrase, well, you know, the whole too many cooks in the kitchen concept. I can only, the defense between them that I have heard made is that basically too many cooks in the kitchen is more in reference to too many people trying to dictate what's going to happen, whereas many hands just means people who
are helping. So the bottom line is, if you're a follower, we thank you. And if you're trying to being a leader, just stop.
Oh, I thought you meant followers of ours, and I was
like,
we ain't got many of them.
No, I was meaning like just the royal follower, whoever you are.
I don't know where we are.
This feels a bit like Arcane all of a sudden. I was like,
well, I mean,
getting some flashbacks from.
It's not a new concept. The whole idea of the city beneath the city. It's a bit metatextually obvious nowadays.
True.
The concept of like, oh yes, the ivory tower. Look, it's an actual tower made of ivory. Isn't this subtextual? Arcane did it well though, because they didn't really linger on it. I think it was more of a
given.
They weren't like, how clever are we that the people who are oppressed live at the bottom of the city? Isn't that subtextual?
They were just like, yeah, we know. It's a bit obvious.
Why is Mr. Darrow man talking to me? It's been like, 3 weeks since we've done this.
So more than likely we're going to take the first...
Oh goodness, we haven't eaten our creatine.
There's no scoop.
Just gonna eat it from the bottle.
He just ends up looking like some sort of
Like
crackhead
there
with
were
it all
cops
over
at the
his
door.
nose.
He was like, Yo, you got any more of that protein? That didn't actually do what I needed it to do, though. I needed to find a quest. Find Vasily Sevchenko. It's a good name.
I am waiting for Vasily.
What was Arrow guy Russian's name?
Oh,
It wasn't Vasily, but it was something like that, wasn't it?
It's gonna bother me now because
Yeah, you liked him.
Woohoo!
I love my weird.
Anatoly.
It's a good name. It's a better name. If I had to pick a Russian name, woo! Oh, I hurt myself. Actually, if I were to pick a Russian name, I'd actually have to pick a name that probably. Didn't we talk about this once? The concept of name translation. Because some people do this, just pick a name that you like, and I'm like, that feels disingenuous. I'd want to pick a name that. Are you freaking serious?
What?
Okay, you'll remember if you go back in our editing. We spent ages trying to figure out how to get into this building where the gang is. And I remember coming to this part thinking there's got to be a way to sneak in. And it turns out that if I just went over here and crawled down this ladder, I would have gotten to where we needed to be. But I didn't know that because I'd like to point out that the map is extra unclear. Because if I were to look at this, I'm thinking, well, this just must mean non-passable. There's nothing here.
Well, they can hardly make it obvious.
No, because they make this a continuous black thing to be like, this is one surface. But if they put blocks in between them, I'm going to assume that it's not connected. Because like all of these are connected.
They're not uber connected. You have to jump it still. I mean...
Well, no, but I'm saying they didn't make any indication at all in that room. Oh, well, okay. Now it's where I need to go. So if I were to fall through 2 layers of floor, I'd get to where I needed to be.
Apparently not.
I didn't mean to actually do it. We need to get our... So we've already upgraded...
I think I'm going to just...
Yeah, that's probably smarter. The new table setup is actually getting in the way.
So we've once again upgraded our setup, which may improve the audio potentially.
It's not going to improve the audio. It just makes it more convenient.
It's certainly out of the way more. So
more out of our way.
But yeah, a little.
So we've upgraded the Boingo knees. We got to get the Boingo ankles next, I guess.
That's in the game. We don't have physical Boingo knees.
I mean, you'd think that knees. Surely, if you had Boingo knees, then that would work for impact absorption as well. Like if you can jump real high, probably you could stand to land from very high.
Doesn't it stand to reason that people that actually get like surgeries post like bionic knees or whatever, that you would take the time to say, we're not just going to give you what you had, now you have massive super strength in this knee?
Well, that's not a matter of skeleton, though. They'd have to do something to the muscles to make that happen.
Is that a fact?
Well, your muscles are what moves things. Your skeleton has no bearing on strength.
But it's somewhat, because
No.
I mean,
other than I suppose the fact that if you had hyper-strong muscles, you would also need hyper-strong bones. But one without the other wouldn't be of any use. Because hyper-strong muscles would tear your bones apart, and if massive, strong bones wouldn't make you stronger, they would just make you more durable.
So where am I heading then?
Towards the orange triangle, but don't jump from the roof. That's not the way to get to the orange triangle.
It's not?
No, that's how I died. So I mean, yes, we need to get there, but we need to get there without dying.
Which, okay.
So you have to find a healthy way down.
Down?
Yes, but not falling.
You
could jump from air conditioning unit to air conditioning unit, but
I was about to say, can I jump down?
Well,
no.
I thought you actually survived that.
I was thinking you could have landed right there.
I like how that guy's still menacing us after we fall to the ground.
That doesn't seem...
Guy falls from the roof, falls over in pain, and I'm still going to be like, you're not supposed to be here, bro. Just in case you get up after your knees have turned to mush.
Yeah.
Were you only referencing Arcane tangentially? Are we gonna? Do we have?
Well, you
get your IV bag ready for the daily dose.
Yeah, I'm.
It's a bit heady. Well, much like heroin. I'm David Attenborough. That's a funny gag that I can't repeat live.
So, what about Arcane? You seem
It's
to
real good. Have you ever talked about it?
Have we chatted about Arcane?
Only briefly. I wanted to, because we're still on this divide between Arcane and Peaky Blinders. Apparently, I'll never not be on this divide.
I don't know that it's a divide.
Not really, but it is sort of, because here's the question that I have for you, because this is one thing that Peaky Blinders did not have for me, was a contemporary character reflection, and I will have to explain what I mean by that probably.
Yes, you will.
But we both would agree that that's where I need to go. I don't know how to get there, though, because it's literally right down there.
Can you...
And I don't want to fall and die.
That air conditioning unit looks perfect. I don't understand why you couldn't...
Well, it isn't perfect.
That's so stupid. That seems disingenuous to the
I agree,
structures.
but then again, remember, we weigh 2 tons. We have steel implanted everywhere, so we apparently can't fall more than 6 inches without serious
Curse our
damage.
iron nuts. I mean...
I don't think they're the problem. They're brass now. They're part of an ammo system. Our Peaky Blinders did not have a character that... I'm jumping ahead. I gotta lay my groundwork first. We both agree that to varying extents, each show has a sort of Jungian shadow reflection character of like...
That's certainly true.
We mentioned the there but for the grace of God go I concept of like, this is what you could easily be if the circumstances came about.
Yeah.
But Peaky Blinders doesn't have someone that I feel like this reflects me currently. Did it have that for you? Because that is the crucial difference between Arcane and Peaky to me, is one was like... Well, and even then, I wouldn't say Thomas is as much of a reflection of my id as apparently you think he is of yours.
Yes, that's certainly
Or
true.
because Silco is much more of my id character, and they are different substantially, I would say, despite being of similar stripe. But there was no ego to keep up the Freudian terminology. And I was hesitant to use that word because I don't actually know what it means in the Freudian sense. I don't know what his definition of it was, because I don't think it was the modern definition. I think it's become so overused a word. That
your ego in that your personhood versus...
the perception you have of yourself, which I'm not sure if that was his definition. You might even call it the Jungian sense. It would be more of like a persona. But that sounds awfully fake these days. Like we think of persona as being a deliberate act,
right?
But I don't think it is. In the Alan Watts sense, your persona is your perception of who you are, which can be genuine,
right?
Despite the fact that it is nonetheless.
Well, it can be
a mask you deliberately wear.
Exactly, because the reality is that you do put on a.
You got boingo knees, just let them have it. Oh, hey, stairs.
Well, that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, thousands of years of technology. We forgot stairs exist. How can I get down there 20 feet below? I'll have to invent a repulsor knee system.
So the short answer is yes. I do think that.
I don't want the short answer. I want the super ultra mega answer.
The character. See, that's.
Are you gonna have to? Is this a shame moment? You're gonna have to reveal that you secretly identify with the weird gypsy kid or something.
No,
You identify with Finn, and it's okay. We'll accept you.
I think it's a bit of a.
I'll resist calling you a tosser.
There are times that I identify very much as.
Doesn't mean I won't, by the way. I'll just resist.
The Arthur kind of.
I did
vibe.
like Arthur, but I don't know that I.
There are also times I very much identify with the kind of intense ambition, if you will, of Tommy, and I don't think and I don't think that's unfair to say is
that would be the area,
characteristic of my ego. I think that's a fair.
I think that would be the crossover between him and Silco, is that they're both ambitious but for different reasons, I suppose. Oh. This is gang territory.
Okay, well.
So we got to get in there.
How do I learn your sign? What's your sign?
I thought you were saying like an actual physical sign.
No, I was meaning in a gang sense.
Oh, see, I thought you were talking horoscope at first.
Hey, baby.
Hey, man, what's your sign?
Sure. Should I just go in guns blazing?
I don't think that's a great idea, but I mean, I won't stop you. I wouldn't use the revolver, though. That's overkill for these guys. Just crouch straight in front of him. That's how we'll intimidate him. He's just crouching there. Not singly. Okay, well, I mean, one way to do it.
Apparently not. Well, I at least revealed the stairs to you.
I liked Arthur, but I don't know that he was the most, I think, sympathetic character. Because just going, he's as, well, maybe not as driven, but he's sort of as, I don't know what the word is. He's got part of Tommy's, like, we're going to be the guys in charge. But he's also
a loose cannon.
Well, that, I suppose, but that's not the part of him that I liked. I actually found the most sympathetic part of him the more he bears the weight of all of it, whereas
Very
Thomas does, but
Privately.
in such a cold way that it sort of feels like he doesn't, whereas Arthur's much more human about it.
Yeah. This is what I would say. The long answer is the reason I identify so
is Thomas both for you?
I am using ego in
autosaved.
Defining that as a way of saying this is the perception of myself that I present, and that is
no. I'm not asking. See, that's not what I'm interested in. That's much more the mask on kind of sense.
Well,
I mean,
that is what ego is, arguably.
Well, see, that's why I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, because I don't mean this is the act I put on deliberately for the sake of joining society. I mean, this is who I believe I am. Which arguably is still a form of act, but it's an act you
in that argument
it's how you would behave regardless of whether you're being watched, which isn't. I'm speaking, of course, in very probably, for lack of a better term, Taoist terms, in the sense that your personality doesn't actually exist.
It's
in the sense that you are playing a game even when you are yourself, but it's the game you choose to play because you want to be that way.
That's a very modern.
Is it? Because it's a very Wattsy idea.
Well, but I'm
very interested in Amy.
It's a modern psychological perspective that takes
it's much more modern.
It takes into account Freud and Jung, arguably.
Probably that's why I don't know whose terminology to use, because I think Jung was the more persona and Freud.
I would
was
say
the
it's
ego.
more of an integrated, even potentially postmodern psychology is what I would say.
Watts wasn't postmodern though, and he's the reference I'm citing for this. So
sure, which we'll get into him in a bit because I actually have found him to be refreshing.
Well, so I gotta get over there. Wait, that's the fun door.
What?
I forgot that. We've already been in this building. We did it from the other way. I didn't realize. I was looking at the map backwards. I thought we were in a different
part of town.
Yeah, because we came out of that door remember when we were in the elevator shaft for a while and we got all bamboozled.
I don't recall that.
Now I don't know how to get back to where we were. We came up upstairs. I'm going up here.
So this is if we're defining it as what you would be no matter what.
Who you believed yourself to be, which isn't always who you are. That's what I mean by mask. Because many people are deluded. Okay, this is my loose understanding of Freudian terminology, so I could be using the wrong words here. Many people confuse their superego with their ego. Because the superego is
who they would like to be.
Yes, it's who they imagine themselves as, but that's not who they. But that's not who they always are, and it's often the idealistic form of like.
Correct.
That's why so many people feel the need to assert themselves as being good people, is because that's what their superego wants them to be.
So that.
But their ego is who they. The ego is essentially the perfect mix between your id and your superego. Arguably, that is Freud's. I think that's Freud's terminology. Is that it is the point at which what you are, which is your subconscious, and what you want to be, collide.
This is the hard part.
It's the cognitive dissonance between who you think you are and who you really are.
Right.
But if you're conscious of it, then you recognize it. Maybe that's what I mean when I say the Wattsian sense of, if you're truly conscious of it, you realize that your ego is a fiction of both of them.
Right.
Because it's who you want to be, which doesn't exist, and it's who you are, which you're not conscious of.
Right.
And if you become conscious of it,
you cannot be conscious of it.
That's where the ego is the only way you can access your subconscious.
Right.
Is by integrating it and thus
which is
your
shadow.
But again, that's why your ego doesn't fully exist. We sound very Buddhist.
Well, it's
we're not Buddhist. I've said it before. People are just going to stop believing us.
We're not Buddhists, but
that's very convincing. I never would have thought to say it again in a slightly different tone of voice.
Here's my dilemma. I'm glad that in Peaky Blinders there is a scene in which Tommy says, "My brother and I are the same person."
I did think that scene was a good one
because I feel that defines my relation to the characters. In that there are parts of both Arthur and Tommy in the kind of worst parts of themselves in the show that very much represents what I would be at my worst, which to me is my id.
But that seems somewhat opposite because Tommy's worst and Arthur's worst are radically opposed. Because Tommy's worst is
it though?
Much more of the
in rewatching the show, it really isn't.
Sort of. Have you rewatched the show?
Yeah, and there are times
Arthur's a loose cannon and Tommy is not, even at his worst.
Though. At times.
Only the one scene with the Changretta scene is the only time I can think of where he's ever been unhinged.
And there's also the time with
the Lees. Or when he kills the bar guy.
And the time with the Lees when he... And you think about...
But see, those are calculated strikes. Like, he's aggressive and violent, but they are pre-planned.
Basically provoke him with talking about his mom.
Yeah, that's what the first season one, does it not?
Yeah. And he attacks them for it.
That still seems
calculated.
Awfully,
that's fairly responsive.
But his whole aim was to take over their...
It's true.
So it was a deliberate... I think that was part of his deliberation.
Maybe.
The only times I think you ever see Tommy lose his composure was in the Changretta, not the Luca Changretta, but with the dad Changretta that they murder. And with the bar scene very early on when he's like, "Now Grace, you've seen who I am." So I suppose in that sense, but he's so buttoned up that I'm not sure that I would call that his worst self. I think his worst self is the much more cold, calculating.
Sure, but...
Because that's who he That is his arguably super ego, is that he actually wants to be that way. He would like to be totally a ruthless, killing, manipulating, controlling everything. And the fact that he would want that rather than occasionally. We got to go through the. I think you have to jump on top of the elevator to get into it. So I think you have to go one level up. Because the elevator is at the floor we need to be on. No, it's on top of the elevator. It's not a door. That's what it is. You don't get into the elevator. You stand on top of the elevator.
We're okay.
I'm psychologizing.
So
point again.
Okay, so
yeah, that was the door.
Where?
Behind you. But contextual.
What are you?
In there is a new world. This is where you need to be.
In here?
Yes. Oh. Guys, that's video game speak for you're in the right spot. I don't think they want you here, so I wouldn't approach them.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Hi. I was just kind of like, hey
guys. Sup, chums? What happened to this car? I'd use sniping from here. Use the rifle. We got lots of ammo for it.
Where is it?
Well, it's in there.
Oh my, a door.
That's the sniper rifle.
No, I'm not on the right side. Dang it. I still submit that there are parts of both of them that I feel at their worst is because. Here's the thing. I'm not consistent in my responses when
I'm not consistently a loose cannon. I suppose that's the definition of a loose cannon.
That's true.
If you were consistently a loose cannon,
there are times that I go, Arthur's quote about like my heart, I'm a good man, but these hands belong to the devil. I'm like, I feel that.
I find that to be absolving oneself too much.
He's certainly disassociating. I don't think that's
and
unfair.
I don't know that that's of health. I don't know that I'd be like, I can understand that.
Okay.
I'm not a dissociative person, I don't think.
I'm not suggesting that I would like to be. I'm saying that happens to be a tendency. Well, are you talking in a
sort of James or Paul rather
right.
But what I hate to do, I do.
I think that's kind of what he's getting at too.
Maybe it seemed a little bit copey, where it's like,
copey as in like
it's almost like I can't control myself, therefore it's not my fault.
No, that's not what he was saying.
That's kind of how it felt.
Okay, well, the parts of Arthur that I feel like I definitely would say are my perception of myself are that there are times that I can be very, hey, there's a job that needs to be done, and whatever's in my way better get out of my way. But that also at the same time,
it doesn't kill me. You should run.
There are times that I'm flustered or surprised by an event, or caught off guard by something, I may react rashly. That's certainly true of me. And so I think to have a fair perception of myself, in that I'm not going to posit that I am some perfect emotional control as Tommy often is, I would say that part of myself is definitely Arthur. However, there are also times that if pushed to the brink, I can be very cold. Where it's like, okay, now you've crossed a line where I'm not only a loose cannon anymore, I'm legitimately going to eviscerate you in every possible and conceivable way in very calculated manner. So I don't think... Are you suggesting...
Wearing a welding
now, let me
mask?
clarify something now that I've unpacked all of that.
Well, apparently it does help. What kind of a welding are you doing?
He's about to weld your face open.
The pipes I weld back. Welding
are you
mask could
suggesting
stop
that
bullets.
You don't feel that
I liked Arthur, but I don't know that I was like, oh, I really see myself in Arthur. I found him a compelling character because it's like he was the Theoden of the show. It's like the guy who, yes, he can do the things everyone else is doing, but he bears the weight of it in the way other people don't seem to.
Sure.
Because he's very much like, he struggles with the knowledge that, like, yeah, what we're doing isn't always great, and I have to wear that. Whereas Thomas, I think, is far more... Arguably speaking, Thomas is some form of socio-psychopath, one of the two. He would have to be to do what he does.
Sure.
Whereas I think Arthur... I don't know that he would be. I think he's just more... Because I think Thomas isn't phased by most of what he does.
Whereas Arthur is just
Arthur
more
definitely
jaded.
is.
Right.
Where it's
He's
like he definitely
jaded, but he definitely does still feel.
He still feels the weight of the things that they're doing. Whereas I genuinely think, at least most of the time, Thomas is actually able to totally wipe his hands of it. It's like he has no remorse for any of it.
Well, but what is that but true disassociation? I mean,
well, it would be sociopathy or psychopathy or whichever one is which. If the sociologist could ever get them straight as to which is which, because I always hear them referred to by opposite definitions, so I never know which one's which.
Anyway, the principal thing, there was actually an analyzing video that I was watching. I don't believe it was by a psychologist, so to call it scholastic is a little maybe strong, but it was a very intellectual, heady approach to it, and basically they were talking about...
What, did they give their qualifications?
No, but I'm saying it had that flavor. But what they were unpacking was, even with Tommy, there is a behind the scenes of Tommy that is very... You certainly can't say that every part of his life is calculated and controlled, because, for instance, his response to his PTSD is self-medication through drugs and things like that.
Yeah, but
so
he doesn't seem to keep that up for the whole show.
He doesn't
they certainly
with
don't
grace,
show it
but then
he doesn't go back to it either. Well, he drinks frequently. I mean, that would be the argument that he substitutes the opium for drinking after a while.
Sure.
But then he gives that up, too.
He does.
Smoking, I guess, is the one thing he does consistently.
Well, and that's more social. I don't think you can really
I don't know that I agree, because he literally never stops doing it.
Well, no, but I'm saying
No, people, even back in the day, people weren't chain smoking. We made the comment, his whole thing is literally, it's like, this one's out, I'm starting another.
Yeah.
That's an addictive thing. That's not just, everyone's passing around the cigarettes, I'll have one. That's like, if I'm not smoking this, I will... You won't like me when I'm not smoking. So I gotta aim, I guess, for the nuts with this guy, because the welding mask is too powerful. No kids for you! Okay, well, it's got titanium nuts. And there's someone behind me. What's with why am I not reloading fast enough? Okay, so that guy is a Superman. He can't be hurt.
Because in this particular analyst video, it was talking about the idea that Tommy definitely puts a mask on the social level, but then has this kind of less. I wouldn't call it vulnerable, but more honest maybe with his family, where it's like he's a little more unhinged.
Honest, but not vulnerable, I wouldn't say.
I think the only person he really gets arguably vulnerable with would be Grace, and then to a lesser degree Arthur. Those two people he's
that
probably
that was, I suppose, the one element of the show where I was like, I do appreciate their relationship as being very... Spoilery alert, because this would be from the final season, but I think the scene in which Arthur finds out that Tommy may or may not have brain cancer, it's like that was a phenomenal acting on both of their parts.
Right.
Because both of their reactions are typical of their characters, and yet manage to also be showing the sides of them they don't show anyone else. So I don't know. I thought that was quite moving.
The bit in which I'm trying to.
It's just one level down.
One level down, and then
no, that was it. That was it. You went down. Oh, I lied. It's one more.
I was about to say.
Well, I think you could probably drop. Not from. Oh, you're on the railing. No. Okay, that was too far. You're too close.
Wait, that's not where I want to be.
No, you don't want to be at the bottom floor. You want to be one above the bottom.
And then
that
the door over here.
Here's the door. I don't think we need to go the direction I was going because it's a sealed room, but I'm curious as to what's in there because this is the way forward to the actual plot. But there's guys guarding the other room, which means something in value must be in there. How would you reckon bullets could even be loaded by that mechanism? You're putting the bullets like right in the center of the gun. That's not how that usually works.
Iron sights on this are really not good.
Well, that's why we got the laser sight. I mean...
it's really difficult to like slowly move this. It's like really hard to move it.
You could shoot him in the butt. Bing, bing, bing. Whoa, pop that melon.
Are you serious?
You got him. He slumped over.
Oh, okay.
He's really slumping. Oh, well, your friend's alerted. What is he doing? He's still falling out of...
Oh, are you kidding me?
It took him like 20 seconds to fall out of the chair.
That's because it was such a clean shot. That was a Kennedy shot right there. Wow. So in that sense, I do feel like no matter how strong a person is,
no matter how strong,
there is a mask you're going to present, a version of yourself that is less flawed than your actual behind the scenes self is. And but in that sense, I would argue that my ego, I could see parts of myself in both Arthur and in Tommy.
Well, but see, that could be said,
especially.
I would argue, of any decent piece of fiction that has good characters as usual. I can see bits of myself, but I mean,
so
you seem to act as though Thomas is like, that's an alternate self staring me in the face. I feel similarly about Silka. Oh, can I?
I resist saying that only because
that was dumbest death. Because I'll say it straight up, like, Silco is me on bad. Give me that. If that happened to me, I genuinely am like, that's probably...
if that happened to me. So,
I mean, like, textbook that, I think I would do the exact same things.
In the same...
Which is why I was like, I'm a little bit freaked out because part of me is on screen. And I mean, like, a third of me, arguably. Freudian speaking.
I think that's true of Tommy, for me. And the reason being... the reason I resist saying that is because what you just did is
it's an unflattering thing.
Well, certainly. You contextualized, and I would say if I contextualized and said if I went to war and had all the same basically context for that, my personality would certainly do that. sad and kind of threatening that's...
Well, thank goodness we don't have
True of
wars
me,
of that
but-
caliber anymore, because it did happen to a lot of people.
Ooh, okay.
All right, that was your clown death. Both got the clown death out of the system.
So the reason I'm a little bit intimidated is not the right word.
It's unflattering. This is why Arcane was not like, wow, this show's great. I was a little bit like, I think I may have a problem. Because I'm going, okay, if I resonate this strongly with a guy that you certainly wouldn't publicly say you admire,
Yeah.
you kind of have to be like, well, something's up that I should pay attention to. That's very much a Peterson thing.
The thing that I think...
You don't hide from that, because if it intimidates you, yes, you kind of have to face it and figure out why.
The thing that
because
I think
otherwise it will happen without you
on an
being
ego
conscious.
level for me with Tommy is that the way in which he's evil is also
I think evil might be just a touch.
well,
strong.
I'm just calling it I'm using very black and white terms right now. So the way in which he's
again, we need the Boingo ankles.
deviance. Maybe we'll say it that way. Let's use psychological terms.
Corporation called Boingo Augmentations. That's just we'll replace all bits of your body with springs. First Boingo knees. Oh, why did you have to go? Now you made me think it.
Have you ever seen? Never mind. Just gonna leave that alone. Okay.
Too late for us though. We've replaced that with 2 grenades and I don't know, something else.
It's very
USB stick.
Wow.
It's a terabyte.
Wow. Terabyte, that's a lot. Seriously, how am I missing that?
I'd like to point
repeatedly?
out you jumped without even looking at the ground.
No,
I at least slipped from the beam I was on. You literally stared ahead and just went.
Well, because I know where it is.
Leap of faith.
It's
I should check if we even have this.
his flavor of deviance is also very altruistic at times of his family, for his family.
That's a very limited definition of altruism.
Sure.
I want the good of humanity, but only these few.
But I
That would be called nepotism, actually.
So, okay, I'm nepotistic then.
Culturally speaking, all of us sociologically are.
So there is a element to, I think, that part that is certainly true of my ego, but I think also his brand of just cold, calculated, like, this is what I'm going to do is what I do when... Man, how do I say this well?
Oh, I gotta have more than I have.
I tend to be a long sufferer, and emotionally, you have called me, on a joking level, you've called me Counselor Troy, for anybody who has the knowledge of that reference.
It's not
when it comes to
apt. And it's not an insult.
No, I'm not feeling it as an insult. What I'm saying is, if I could describe that as a function I've learned.
Backstory.
It's definitely not. Man, this is gonna go real deep into who I am.
See, I told you. I'm about to reveal a lot of. Not incriminating is actually probably the opposite. It's probably more like people are gonna watch this and be like, "Are you guys okay?
Are you guys okay?" So there's a Peterson actually, I think, talks about this, about most people that are empaths become empaths because of, and he says it fairly strongly. I think he actually calls it childhood trauma. But he
psychologically, trauma isn't always like big
intense. Yeah,
it just means anything that.
Well, what I learned as I kind of processed the reason why I am a very strong empath to the degree that you call me Counselor Troy is because I had to be. Because I grew up with adults that legitimately not just wore their feelings on their sleeves, but basically made it my responsibility to solve at times. And that is a very That's a hard pill to swallow, but that is the truth. And so I think that part of my personality...
It just means a distressing or disturbing experience.
That part of my personality...
So I suppose trauma is not nearly as loaded a term as many people think.
Sure. I think it's gotten maybe a bad rap because of the counseling world specifically. Because clinical psychologists are very different from counselors. But
yes.
I would argue that part of my personality is very much a learned behavior. And while I think I have learned that on a social level, it is very useful.
That is just a welding mask.
And it gets you very far in social context as far as positioning yourself as a person that can be trusted and a person that is of benefit to know, which is why I enjoy kind of having that part of my personality be a fairly consistent mainstay. Oh, that guy's not happy that you're there.
He doesn't know I'm here, but he's not happy about his friends being dead.
But
soon he will.
When
have
I
no
am
problems.
pressed to my gut level, this is your lifeboat, experience where you're forced into a situation and you have to make a split-second decision. It is not empathy. That's where I go.
Well, empathy doesn't mean empathy and agreeableness are not. No.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Agreeableness would mean that I will is that's probably the closest to the altruistic, where it's I'm so agreeable that I will always prefer others over myself, and that's not what empathy is. Empathy simply is the ability. He's invisible. Is the ability to it's so nebulous a term. But basically, it's a sensitivity to emotions of others, and
that's where I say that's a learned behavior that I have.
Arguably, that's a learned behavior.
I have integrated, but I'm saying I've integrated it into my actual personhood. But it's definitely not a gut level experience.
But see, that's where I don't know that anyone's empathy is truly gut, other than the fact that gut level in the sense that it's instinctual, because some people do genuinely have to learn it.
I did.
It's I don't understand how.
I'm just
consciously, or talking as a child. I grew.
I can legitimately separate that particular part of my personality into solely a nurture thing. But I'd say nurture in that, not that it was instilled in me, but that I had to adopt it out of self-preservation.
This dude's...
And that sounds, again, this is really getting intense. The bottom line is, again, the adults in my sphere, I had to learn to pick up on emotions, very subtle emotions, quickly. Because if I did not, then I was forced to handle the fallout of more intense emotions. And so I had to go, okay, I'm picking up on this emotion that I already know exists quickly so that I can make adjustment for it now in the small stuff, rather than having to deal with the large fallout of things actually hitting the fan. And so the reason I say all that is because I go, the hard part about me saying I very much see my ego in Tommy is that most people in meeting me would say I am a very agreeable person, and I think it's not unfair of my personality to say that that's true, but it's not.
I don't think we have this.
It's not a core behavior.
The argument, that's a difficult thing, because the argument of what qualifies as core is...
It's difficult because...
How can you ever truly know that? Because, again, I'm of the opinion that behind the ego there isn't anything.
Well, that's a very Zen principle.
Well, it kind of is. We go, it is the game you play to be you, and if without that you wouldn't be you, you wouldn't be anything.
All I'm saying
sounds very metaphysically gobbledygooky, but...
It... Gosh, how can I...
Do you reject the Zen-like comparison? Do you maybe think that I'm leaning too heavily into it?
No. I'm trying to put into words my dilemma, and I suppose my cognitive dissonance isn't a strong enough word.
Isn't strong enough.
That's
remarkable.
It's more than that. It's a bit of a there is, so you follow Cave of Videlum guy.
I don't follow him. I'm aware of him.
So Jason, I can't remember his last name. Brilliant guy.
Good channel.
And good channel, and he talks all the time about comprehensive men, because oftentimes manhood is considered this idea of, well, we're masculine, so we have to bring the kind of heavy side and the strong side and then whatever else. And he says yes, but in order to be an actual in order to have comprehensive manhood, you also have to have the sensitive and the whatever else. I think that
at one point, we might as well upgrade the hacking to max.
My intense drive to make sure that I am not the person I could be is largely a self-control, high level of self-control. And I say that because, and that's not to pat myself on the back, but if most people knew what goes on behind the scenes in my head and what I prevent oftentimes from being said and or being enacted because of my gut level reactions versus what
that's bad.
What my learned behaviors are, it's very much how Jason in one of his videos describes this idea of you have to learn how to let the lion out in context and in controlled environments, because if you don't, and you don't apply that principle of I know myself, and it's a bit like the shadow integration thing where you know how to apply the dangerous side of yourself as well so that you are able to recognize it and control it. That's the part of me that I think is very much Tommy. Is this idea
trouble with that
is this idea that if I do not self-regulate, I would be a vindictive and self-serving.
The trouble is that's shadow. That's not.
It is.
That's because I would actually to make it somewhat of an argument that. Okay, I've screwed that up. Thomas isn't doing that. Thomas doesn't care about the consequences of what he does, really. Only in the consequences of whether or not they allow him to succeed or not. Because I would actually go so far as to say that Silco is the character who basically goes, I finally have the justification to show you what I think. And in some ways, perhaps that's the more cathartic thing for me, is you go, he's got an undeniable excuse to be like, all right, I've been holding back, and I don't have to. And it isn't just because I don't care anymore, it's because I'm actually justified. And I suppose that's the
distinction.
Yeah, but that's what Tommy doesn't have that option.
Tommy doesn't have the justification. He does it anyway.
Yeah, but you seem to think that that's not... I'm confused then as to what your point is, because it would seem based on that you would like Silco more, as much as I do.
I'm saying my natural bend on a personality level doesn't need justification. And again, I say that's a really horrible.
So it's not that you wouldn't, because I'll admit, and this is the unflattering part, is it's like there is a sense of the relishing is a strong term, but there is, I think, an element of like you as some. I mean, gonna get put on a list.
I think we're already on that.
I think that there is perhaps, and this is again a more masculine thing in general, but there's like an element. I think there's an element of like, I think every man is curious to see, could I do it? Could I? What would it be like to just be like, I'm done holding back, and I'm going to do what I want, and I'm not going to care. But I think the difference with Silco is that there's a degree of a cathartic sense of like, not
righteous
that he's
duty.
Not that he's inherently correct, but there is a certain element of justification that you could almost
It's
get the best of
indignation,
both worlds in a way.
Yeah.
Which is why I actually said that I suppose I ought to, reflect on that more harshly, because that's perhaps a more dangerous position to be in, to be like to buy into your own reasoning. Say, I'm justified in doing this, therefore I don't have to feel bad. Whereas I would say Thomas is the opposite. It's like, I'm not justified and I just don't feel bad because...
He just doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, because again, I would argue he's sociopathic. He'd have to be either psycho or sociopathic, whichever one is what I mean.
And that's the part that scares me. Because I feel like there's a part of it that I'm like, I could see that.
See, that's what's interesting is that I would say... We had the Big Five discussion a while back. This is the same helmet-wearing weirdo as before. And I think obviously I still haven't taken the test, I should, but I would wager that if I am as high in conscientiousness as I think I possibly am, I would argue that's a nature thing, or a nurture thing as well, rather than nature.
But that's my point.
Because naturally, I would say that the natural thing would be the disagreeableness and the openness, which... that does sort of disqualify me from being a psychopath, according to Jordan Peterson. So I suppose I should be thankful for that, because you have to be, generally psychopathy would be low in agreeableness, high in extroversion, and low in neuroticism. Basically meaning I'm oriented towards achieving goals, which is extroversion. I don't care about the feelings of others, and I'm not emotionally fraught. And I believe I'm probably very low in agreeableness, but I intend to be... I would assume that I am of reasonable high in neuroticism, not probably massively. And I'm probably at the bottom end of introversion, or extroversion rather. So I don't think I could be, but that doesn't mean that... I think the disagreeableness on its own is a sense of like, I just don't concern myself with it. It doesn't bother me much. Because arguably that's the... I suppose of the psychopathic trio, that's the one that leads to the lack of remorse, is the disagreeableness. The extroversion is what leads towards the sort of enterprising, I'm going to get what I can, and then the other aspects make it, I'll get what I can at whatever cost because I won't care. Yeah, it was you're on the right level.
I looked and I didn't...
You have to open the door. You can't just look at the door.
I didn't.
Did we get the stuff from the pause and? Because I got stuff out of that safe. I don't know if it's saved after I did that. Look at our stats. I don't think it would have. It would have auto saved after. No, okay, so it didn't. So we're gonna have to get the hacking upgrade again. It's that one on the side that's almost all the way upgraded. It's the 7 out of 8. Just get that, and then we'll hack the safe again. I forget what was in it, but I'm sure it was worth something. Why did I bring that up, though? Well, I forgot what I was even saying. Right, I psychologically probably can't be a sociopath, so good on me, I guess. I don't know why I brought the Big Five up. Oh, the conscientiousness thing. Because I would argue that the disagreeableness plus... introversion, basically I could very easily be a hermit, and I fully acknowledge that. Like, the reason I am not a hermit is purely the conscientiousness that's like, okay, I probably should be of some use to society. Because if I had no conscientiousness, I'd be like, nah, I'm just gonna go live in a cabin. I don't need to be involved in any of this. Whoa.
Okay.
He had the big stuff. So I think that's what I was saying in the sense of the nurture versus nature. I think on the nature level, I would say the disagreeableness and the openness and probably neuroticism would mean I'd probably be a weird hermit, lives in a cabin and writes weird. I'd be basically Henry David Thoreau.
Thoreau.
Oh wait, no, was it Emerson? Who wrote Walden? Is that Emerson or Thoreau? I think it was Emerson actually. Ralph.
Yeah.
I say it like he's my friend.
Ralph.
I would probably just be that, or Edgar Allan Poe.
This is Poe.
Actually,
Poe.
Sadly, I would probably be H.P. Lovecraft.
No,
I'd be writing
fair.
very bizarre, kind of screwed up fiction.
So here's
with the occasional philosophical. So maybe Edgar Allan Poe's.
Yeah, I think I could see Poe. here's
I
my
would probably die in a gutter someday. And
so
that's a sad
this
thought.
is going to be very unflattering. I'm just going to.
Hey, well, I just said I was going to die in a gutter. So what's the, oh, come on! I want the Boingo ankles.
The reason that I see my ego and Tommy, if I'm talking about the big five, I honestly don't know where I would land on a lot of things when it comes to. I think I'm a lot less open than people think. Because I tend to share things.
No, openness does not mean discussion with others. Openness means it's about
open to new ideas,
ideas and experience.
But
I would say the what we do, even this kind of we're talking about random crap is a part of openness, where it's like interest in dissecting philosophy and ideology and thinking about things and discussing them in order to sort of flesh them out.
I suppose that would be pretty.
Even in the sense of like art. Intake of artistic experience in an attempt to find some sort of inspiration.
This is my challenge. My, albeit learned,
that doesn't
disqualify behavior of emotional awareness. Man, this is just really going to be a really poor rendering of myself.
Your computer can't handle the rendering. Hey, if you know it, at least that's better than not knowing it.
I have a far easier tendency to lean into manipulation than people may assume of me.
Well, I wouldn't assuage the same accusation. There's a Jacob in both of us, I would say.
And I think the idea that I am good at...
You're better at it than me, I suppose.
And that's the thing that hurts, is that I just go...
If I had your level of ability to understand other people, I probably would be a much worse person.
Well, and that's why I'm like, that's very much Tommy. I'm going to use you to my own ends.
But he doesn't manipulate in that sense. He coerces.
But that's manipulation.
No, manipulation is to convince someone to do it and to make them want to do it. It's like, I'm going to convince it's a motivational thing where it's like, I'll basically lie to you and deceive you into doing what I want and making you think you want to do it. Tommy is much like, no, you're going to do what I want because I'm going to force you to.
Sure, it's far more like
whereas
your hands are tied.
I don't have the example on hand, but the one I commonly... I mean, I do have the example. What I mean is I don't know how apt it is, but people often describe Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. I don't know who that is, but he's basically the kind of character where it's like the total... backstabbing, I'll make you think I'm your friend and then I'll betray you.
No, see, that's the thing that I think crosses the line to me, because I am also, this is going to sound so...
Because coercion is like, I will force you, because Thomas, it's all force. It's if you don't play along, bad things will happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he can do that because he's got the power to do it.
And that's...
Manipulative people often don't have the power,
I
that's why they're
to
manipulative.
me that's manipulative in that you're manipulating the position that you have and the knowledge of...
Wow.
It's blackmail to a degree and some... But... So maybe manipulation in your definition is not exactly what I'm driving at.
Because coercion is force. Manipulation is actually to deceive and to get someone
to do... And that's where I feel like, and this is going to sound super like hollow platitude vibes, because I am still principled in how I...
Well, that's not much of a platitude, because that's a pretty milquetoast statement, no offense.
No, but I'm saying I'm principled.
Everyone has principles of some variety.
No, but I'm saying, like, to backstab somebody after telling them essentially I'm going to be for you and then to turn around and not be is not my style. I think that's a little...
Well, because dishonesty, that's dishonest. No, I do... Oh, that's generally...
Oftentimes,
more... characters like that are like that because they have no recourse. It's like, I couldn't... Well, Thomas does what he does because he's got the power to do it.
Right. Well, he's got to be...
When you don't have that...
To be honest, he's got the stone.
Here's actually the better example. The best example of what I would consider manipulative is someone like Penguin.
Right. Which is
where it's like, I couldn't get to where I am. He obviously gets to the point where he can coerce because he has force eventually.
Yeah.
But he starts out as someone with not enough power, so he has to trick. So arguably, it is the tool of the underdog.
Right.
And I think it could be simple ego that's like both of us, that's again the misuse of the term, pride, I'll say, where it's like, I would rather do it man to man, as it were.
Right.
Like, I'd rather coerce you into doing what I want than to lie to get you to do what I want.
I'd rather basically give you no option and just say, I'm backing you into a corner, and that part is very much me. on even a conversational level, like there have been times with more of my close, intimate relationships that I have had that people have said, okay, stop painting me into a corner. You're basically giving me, and that part of me is something that I do. I say,
how can you not?
Okay, are you serious, bro?
What are you made of? That was a waste of that grenade. What? I brought him back from the dead just so I could smack his buddy with his corpse. And then he disappeared. I don't think this. I don't know that this save had anything worth this much trouble in it, but I forget what it was.
For me, the difficulty is all of my emotional attunements only, at best, I use them for knowledge so that I can better angle myself to be a support to people. But at worst, which sometimes, and I would say it left to my own devices, it becomes something that I do end up saying, guess what, you're painted into a corner, now you have no option. Because I know people well. And so I go, you're not
but
going
that's
to...
still not the same. Because I think the trickery is what I'm talking about.
And that's not what I'm saying.
Because you can't... I don't know how you can emotionally paint people into a corner. Because they can always just choose to not do it. But
coercion requires... But people are going to act the way that they will act. And if you know that going into it... Yeah, but then
presenting them the option is sort of they...
Yes,
that presumes that they have some recourse,
but they don't. That's the point. There are times, and many times in the show in Peaky Blinders, where Tommy goes into a conversation knowing that the person really has no recourse, but basically gives them the well, what are you, what's your choice here?
But that's still force, because I would say that manipulation is to say, I'm going to get you to do what I want, and you'll think that we're a team, and then I'll betray you.
No, I'm not talking about dishonesty.
Because you could be saying, I know how you'll react to this, therefore I've stacked the deck so that you have none of your normal
that's my point.
Reactions. But that's not emotional manipulation. We're talking, at least what I assume when you say things like what you're saying, I imagine full-on like emotional abuse and gaslighting, and that's not what you're describing. You're describing, I know you well enough to know all the ways you would react, so I'm going to restrict you to one.
Right.
That's not... I'm talking about gaslighting and emotional manipulation and abuse to the sense of like,
no.
I'm actually going to make you question yourself.
No.
Okay.
That makes you
that sometimes
yourself.
Works and sometimes doesn't. There are no ladders at the very top. You have to drop at least once before you reach the ladders. So I don't know how that... It's like sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't get what the difference is. Because it's like sometimes I get shot after 10 minutes of stealing from the bank, and then sometimes I die immediately from a 2-foot fall.
Maybe manipulation... Because I feel like you're hung up on that initial word description, and to be fair, I did.
Well, because I think you could, if the kinds of people who do have those to us that level of psychological attunement to be like, I could actually make you think I'm your friend right up until the point I stab you in the back.
And that's not my style. Again, I say that's not my style. I think that's more your latter statement is probably more
what did I say about ladders?
No, I'm saying you're as in like.
Well, it was funny because I did just make a statement about ladders.
Come